After very much enjoying the first BioShock game, despite a few annoyances, and then loving the sequel, I was very much looking forward to diving into BioShock Infinite. I'd been told it was very different from the previous two games, not just in setting and style, but also in that a few things had different names. It's still the same FPS game with some magic abilities known as Vigors in this rather than plasmids, but it switched the underwater dystopia of Rapture for the floating utopia in the sky called Columbia. If BioShock 1 got everyone saying "would you kindly", then BioShock Infinite got everyone saying "bring us the girl and wipe away the debt". Although the game takes place in 1912, long before the events of BioShock 1, it's unknown whether or not the games are actually linked. You play as Booker DeWitt, who is given the task of finding a girl, Elizabeth, to wipe away a debt, and finds himself in Columbia. At first the place seemed like a nice idyllic place to live, until it soon becomes apparent the utopia is not a utopia for everyone, as racism is extremely high. Booker is soon chased by the authorities when he's accused of being a false shepherd who will corrupt Elizabeth and cause the downfall of Columbia. Of course, you eventually meet up with Elizabeth and try to escape with her, and as you do, the truth about Columbia, how it was created, why, and the racism that has caused a group of people known as the Vox Populi to essentially declare war against everyone else. Just like with the last two games, there are audio recordings you can listen to, called voxophones, that explain more about the backstory, characters, and what the smeg is going on when Elizabeth decides to rip open a tear in space-time. Luckily, her doing that becomes a core mechanic rather than just a gimmick. Objects that are useless in present time can be made useful by Elizabeth opening up a tear to the past. I had a bad feeling that she'd be more like Ashley in Resident Evil 4, more of an annoyance than anything else, but I actually quite liked Elizabeth. She was helpful, finding ammo, health potions, money and all that, but I actually quite liked her personality, characteristics and everything else. There were quite a few other characters that were decent as well, many of whom made you think, what the hell is going on, as events unravelled. But I still had no interest in what was going on.
Look at these, they're amazing. Which one do you like more, this one or this? The bird is beautiful and the cage is somber, but there's really something special about it.
I don't know what it was about the game, but I actually got a bit bored playing it. All the things I liked about the first game, like the exploration, had been mostly removed from Infinite. Sure, there was still some exploration, but there wasn't really anything worth exploring. You could also only carry 2 guns at a time, which made sense from a realism standpoint, but most of your ammo comes from vanquished enemies, so if the guns you like and upgraded aren't being used by enemies, you won't find much, if any, ammo for them, so you're stuffed. There were a few side missions, but again, nothing that was really worth paying attention to. There were times you get asked to make a decision, but the choices you make have very little effect on anything, which is strange considering how much emphasis there seems to be on choice and free will, but then again, maybe that's the point, making you think you have free will and are in control when really, nothing you do makes any difference to how things will eventually end up. The rest of the game just seemed to be arbitrary mission after arbitrary mission. I got bored and just didn't care. I don't know if I didn't care because I was bored, if I was bored because I didn't care, but either way, I gave up on the game. My flatmate said it ends really well and that I wasn't far from the end, so I persevered and finished it. I have to agree that yes, the game finished very well and it had a great ending, but I really didn't enjoy the journey there. It had a few good moments and decent ideas, but I really wasn't invested in the story at all.
This isn't going to work.
I think it can.
Your mother's dead, Elizabeth.
Yes. I think it's time I paid my respects. Let's head to where she's buried.
From people I've spoken to or reviews I've seen by people who have played all 3 BioShock games, it seems as though the people that liked BioShock 1 and 2 didn't like Infinite, and those that weren't keen on 1 and 2 really liked Infinite. As you can probably tell, I'm in the former category. I'd happily replay BioShock 1 and 2 again, but I wouldn't play Infinite again even if it was the only game I owned. Either way, I'm very much looking forward to BioShock 4.
Something tells me they're not exactly what they appear.
I was going to have told you they'd come.
No,
The subjunctive?
that's not a subjunctive.
I don't think the syntax has been invented yet.
It would have had to have been.
Had to have had. That can't be right.
They seem to want to help.
They seem to be out of their
Odd,
minds.
isn't it?
What's odd?
The fact that we sometimes...
Finish each other's sentences?
Exactly.
It would be odder if we didn't.
How do you suppose they manage that?
I'll get back to you after I figure out the floating city bit.